Hey everyone, I'm John from Wiley Visuals, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at my zcam E2-S6 cinema camera rig. I've been using this camera for almost a year now, and so far it's been a fairly enjoyable experience. Over time though, I have made some changes to the original setup that I had, which you can check out in this video here. Now the zcam E2 series of cameras are really different from something like a Sony A7sIII or a Canon C7, which you can basically pick up out of the box, charge the battery and start shooting with them straight away. The zcams on the other hand, they require a little bit more thought and a little bit more effort as to how you're going to be using the camera and what accessories are going to be best for you to get the results that you need. One thing that almost everyone's going to need to add though is an onboard monitor. Now they do have a fantastic app which you can use to link up your phone via Wi-Fi and use that to adjust all your settings as well as get a live feed. But personally I much prefer to have a dedicated onboard monitor, that way I'm not tying up my phone while I'm on set. I've chosen to use the Atomos Ninja V 5-inch monitor. One of the great benefits of that is it does give me the option to record ProRes RAW. Although to be honest, that's not something I've ever done. ProRes is good enough for basically everything I do for my work. Even without using that functionality though, I really like this monitor. It's daylight viewable, which means I can shoot outside in bright sunlight and not have any problems accurately monitoring my image, which is something that a lot of the inbuilt camera monitors don't allow you to do. Over time though, I have made a little change to the way I have the monitor mounted. Previously, I just had a Smallrig bracket that sat right on top of the handle here, and that let me tilt it forward and backwards. But when I was using the Easy Rig, I found that it actually blocked a big portion of the screen and took away a lot of the range of movement that I would have liked to have, especially if I was shooting up high and I needed to tilt the monitor down so that I could see a bit better. It was really getting in the way a little bit. So what I've done is I've just offset it a little bit using a 15mm rod that goes through the hole in the handle here. And that allows me to see the monitor a lot better when I'm using an Easy Rig. Another advantage I've found with having it out on the side like that is that I can actually pick the camera up and rest it on my shoulder and use it almost like a shoulder mount, and the monitor's right there in front of me, whereas before it was up a little bit higher and I wouldn't have been able to do that so much. Now the monitor and the handle are attached to the Smallrig zcam E2 flagship cage, and my camera's been in this cage since the day I've bought it. It's been fantastic for letting me attach all my other accessories as well as keeping the camera nice and snug and safe in there. One thing I have added to the cage since I first got it is the Smallrig Z-back. Now this is fantastic for balancing out the camera, which is something that I'm really a big fan of. As I mentioned, I like to use an Easy Rig, and when you hook it on, it's really important that it balances fore and aft without tilting in either direction. And that's something that this Z-back really lets me achieve just by moving that weight a little bit further backwards and balancing out the lens that I'm usually using, which is the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 art series. The Z-back's also really great for cable management. It's got plenty of room in there so you can coil your cables up and keep them nice and snug and out of the way. On the back of that whole setup, I've got the Knights or Knights, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. I've got their VLock Plate. I think they've only just come out with this fairly recently. It's the smallest one I could find that has dual D-taps out of the side of it. The one that comes included with the Z-back doesn't actually have any power pass-through capabilities, and it just relies on using the D-taps straight out of your batteries. So this Knights plate actually gives me those two D-tap outputs, which I'm using at the moment to power both the camera and the monitor. So that means that just the one battery on the back here is enough for me to power everything on my rig, because I've still got the D-tap and USB output from the battery itself if I need to add anything else like a follow focus. Another thing that I've added just in the past few months is these new smaller VLock batteries. This one's made by Rolex. It's a 99 watt version and it shaves a couple of 100 grams off the batteries that I had been using, which is great, especially when I choose to put it on a gimbal. One of these 99 watt batteries will power the camera and the monitor for about 4 to 5 hours of being turned on. And I've actually had shoot days that go for 10 plus hours where if I've been turning the camera on and off a lot throughout the day, the single battery's actually lasted for the whole day. So that's one of the great things I love about the zcam is it lets you use the VLock batteries nice and easily, But unlike a lot of the cameras that rely on the VLocks, it doesn't suck as much juice. So one of these batteries can actually last almost a whole day, which is fantastic. Moving over to the other side of the camera, and another big addition to this rig is the Revolver Clutch side handle. This is really great. It gives you a couple of dials for quickly adjusting settings, and that's made things a lot easier for me. I have it set up to adjust the aperture and the electronic ND filter, and those are probably the things that I'm changing most while I'm shooting, and it's nice to be able to do that with one hand without having to scroll through the little buttons on the back of the camera. The wooden grip itself isn't quite as comfortable as the Smallrig version that I had on there, but it obviously offers a lot more functionality. When I first got this out of the box and had a little play with it, my initial reaction was, does it come in adult sizes? Because it just felt that little bit less beefy and sturdy than my Smallrig wooden handle, which I previously had on there. But all that extra functionality that it offers is definitely worth that sacrifice, I think. Underneath the camera, I have a Smallrig micro base plate with a pair of carbon fiber rails. I'm not always using them, but they stay on the rig all the time. It's really handy when I need to mount a lens support, particularly when I'm using longer lenses to shoot surfing. Also, if I want to put a follow focus on there, I can do that as well, although that's something I've only had to do once so far. Usually I'm using this as a single operator, so I don't really have a need to hook up a wireless follow focus. As I mentioned, I'm using the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 art lens most of the time, and that's in an EF mount. So the reason I prefer to use the EF mount and not use a speed booster like some people is that I do have the zcam E and D filter installed there. This one took a long time to arrive. It was something like 7 or 8 months from when I ordered it to when it arrived. But now that I got it, I love it. It stays in there permanently. I haven't taken it out in the past 3 months. And since I got my Revolver Clutch handle, it's the easiest way to adjust exposure while I'm filming. On the front of the lens, I almost always have my Tilta mini matte box mounted. Now, I don't actually really need to have that there anymore because I'm not using 4x5 ND filters anymore. But I leave it on there because, let's be honest, cameras just look so much cooler when you actually have a matte box on there, and it looks more impressive to clients, and sometimes impressions matter. So that's why I keep it on there. I have found the French flag has been really useful as well, because I've started using a Tiffin Black Pro Mist filter a lot more often, and they do tend to pick up a fair bit of glare. So it helps for keeping the direct sunlight off that filter when I want to keep that glare down, while still letting me get the best out of those filters. For media, I'm always using the CFast cards. I know a lot of people like to use the SSDs, but personally, I just don't think it's reliable enough if you're running around on set a lot, if you're shooting a lot of handheld. I just don't like the idea of having cables hanging out. It could get bumped. So it's not a risk I'm willing to take. I use Angelbird CFast cards. They've never let me down, never had any issues. You do have to pay a bit of money for them, but that reliability is worth it, and you don't want to be losing footage on a shoot because you've tried to save a few dollars by using SSDs instead. Now, one thing that's not on here at the moment that I do occasionally use is a Zoom H5 audio recorder. Another great thing about the Smallrig Z-Back is it gives me plenty of room to mount that on the top here or on the side, and I use that to plug my microphones into, and then I actually do a feed direct from that into the 3.5mm microphone input on the zcam. I do have a custom-made cable from Alvin's Cables that plugs into the tiny little XLR output on the back of the camera, but I just found that the camera doesn't really give you enough control over audio for that to be my preferred method. I much prefer to have the zoom somewhere where I can easily reach it, easily reach the volume knobs, and also have that backup recording as well. So I can be recording to the SD card in the Zoom H5, as well as onto the video files in the camera itself. So that about sums it up. I haven't changed anything on this rig since December last year, and I feel like I've really got it to a point where I'm happy with it, and it really suits the style of shooting that I do. That's not to say that this particular setup is going to work for everyone though. One of the great things about these cameras being so modular is that you can pick and choose what you want to use for the type of shooting you're doing, and you can keep it really flexible for your own personal needs. Having said that though, I'll put some links in the description below so that if you are looking for any of these individual pieces, you can find them nice and easily. If you have just bought yourself one of the zcam cameras and you're trying to get yourself set up properly for shooting, then I hope this video helped you a little bit. But I'm sure you'll find your own solutions and you'll be having a great time shooting with the zcam in no time, because the best thing about this, I have to say, is the image quality. It doesn't matter how you have it rigged up, that image quality is still going to be there, and it's my absolute favorite thing about this camera. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll catch you next time. Over time though, I have made some changes to the original, why can't I say that? It lets me really clearly. All right, let's start over.